The way we lead impacts the way people live. This world needs truly human leadership.
That's the message. I want you to feel you're part of a movement and that you will feel, I hope each one of you feel cared for. I hope each one of you have a chance to share your gifts and go home at night feeling you're safe, that you can count on your job in your future.
I'm Brent Stewart, your host. Thanks for listening. This podcast is an outreach of Barry-Wehmiller. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller, and find our podcasts, articles, and videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. The last few years have been a period of incredible growth here at Barry-Wehmiller, and we've been fortunate enough to welcome a number of new team members into the Barry-Wehmiller family, not just in St. Louis, but in our organizations across the world. And recently, Bob Chapman, our CEO, had the opportunity to speak to a number of these new team members here in our St. Louis office. His talk was very inspiring. He did a great job of talking about where Barry-Wehmiller had been, where Barry-Wehmiller is going, and the importance of our message of truly human leadership to the world. Because it was an inspiring talk, we decided to just not keep it within our walls, but share it with you all on our podcast. So here's Bob Chapman inspiring some new team members here at Barry-Wehmiller.
So the foundation for this truly human leadership is we believe, without a question now, since we've been on this journey for some time, that we were blessed with a message that could heal the brokenness of the world. Okay? When we wonder what's wrong with kids today, where'd those kids come from? They came from our families. Okay, so we are producing some product that is really challenged today. And I have never in my life felt more genuine concern about the state of the world than right now. And so every part of our society, seriously, at every age group, there's a lot of issues going on right now, and our message seems to resonate well beyond business. You know, I speak in the Air Force, I speak in government, I speak in nonprofits and healthcare. So this message is really not about manufacturing Barry-Wehmiller. It's a message we were blessed with. There's the foundation of our book, the foundation of Chapman Co-Leadership, and the foundation of our nonprofit, where we teach even police departments now. We're teaching in our nonprofits, because police officers are taught to enforce the law. They're not taught how to care for people in their communities. We were just invited a few days ago to give a talk to 600 leaders in China in November, because our book is published in China now, and there's a gathering, and we've been asked to give this speech in China. So I believe it is a healing opportunity where people learn to care for each other. We originally called it people-centric leadership, leadership around people. Simon Sinek got involved and said, no, he's an anthropologist. And he said, no, this is truly human leadership. This is the way we were called to be leaders. And it's not what exists in our country. And the theme is, you can't ask people in our country to care about others. You have to teach them how to care. And just to remind you that right now we are very involved with universities to transform university education to caring. It's because right now we teach academic skills, but we don't teach human skills. And the issues, and so what we realized in our journey, why do we have to fix adults? Because our education system doesn't teach us to care. Our education is around academic achievement, which will allow you to get a good job, make good money, and be rich and be happy. And what we had prior to COVID, prior to our current, in the last 10 years, we had the lowest unemployment in history and the highest level of anxiety and depression we've ever had. Why? Because people don't feel cared for. They feel used because we didn't teach people to care. So I'm going to walk you through our journey fairly quickly, and then would welcome any questions. But again, I want to repeat, you can't ask people to care for others. You have to teach them how to care for it. It's a teachable skill. So 5 years ago, my granddaughter was graduating from Aspen High School. And I was sitting in the Aspen Music Theater tent, which is a beautiful place where graduation is for Aspen High School. And as each child, 150 kids, walked up to get their diploma, there was a great deal of joy from families cheering as their child walked up to get the diploma and they were recognized. And I, as my granddaughter walked up and other members of the family was cheering, I had tears in my eyes because I knew where we were sending these kids. And let me share with you that view that awaits these kids. And remind you, the #1 determinant of happiness in the world, according to Gallup, is a good job working with people you enjoy, doing meaningful work. That's the #1, not pay. They didn't say pay or position. It's doing meaningful work with people you enjoy. So what is the world that all of you that have kids, this is the world that we have learned in our journey. 88% of all people feel they work for an organization that does not care about them. 88% of the people. When I hear people complain about the cost of health care, CEOs, when I talk to CEOs, I say, you worried about the cost of health care? You are the problem. 74% of all illnesses are chronic. The biggest cause of chronic illness is stress, and the biggest cause of stress is work. So we complain about the cost of health care, and we treat people in a way that contributes to heart disease, cancer, anxiety, depression, and then we complain about the cost of health care. Raj Sisodia, my co-author, made me aware that there's a 20% increase in heart attacks on Monday mornings when people have to go back to work. Okay? So we wonder what's wrong. It's so obvious what's wrong. We have a society where success is money, power, and position. And it doesn't really matter how you get it as long as you get it legally. And then you write a check to the American Cancer Society and we say, what a wonderful family. Okay? I'll tell you a short story. There's a gentleman who heard me speak, very financially successful gentleman. He flew out to Aspen to have dinner with me. I didn't know the guy, but he wanted to have dinner. Flew out there. And I said, what are you really proud of in your life? A guy from Kansas City. I said, what are you really proud of? And he said, well, I'm known for my $120 million gift to my alma mater. But what I'm really proud of is my minority student athletic scholarship program. I said, great. How many kids do you help every year? He said, 5 or 6. I said, that's wonderful. I said, how many people work for your company in the world? And he said, 100,000. So I said, you're telling me you care about 5 or 6 students you can help, and you don't give a shit about the 100,000 people that come into your plant every day? It'd make it possible for you to write that check? And he looked at me, fine, really fine gentleman. And he looked at me and said, I never thought about that. I said, that's the problem. The greatest act of charity is not the checks we write, is the way we treat the people that we have the privilege of interacting with every day. That is the greatest act of charity. We wouldn't need all the charities we have in the world if we treated people with respect and dignity. Okay, so, and Jeffrey Pfeiffer, a guy born in University City here in St. Louis, now a leading Stanford professor, he wrote a book called Dying for a Paycheck. And he doesn't mean anxious to get it. He estimates we're killing 120, not injuring, killing 120,000 people a year from work-related stress. And so, again, dying for a paycheck. We also learned that 65% of all people would give up a salary increase if they could fire their boss. 65% of the people. Okay? 58% of people would trust a stranger before they would trust their boss. Okay? I mean, these are not debated by anybody. I give these all over the world. And it's not an American issue, and it's not just a business. I speak in nonprofits. I speak in education. I speak in healthcare. I speak in the government. every part of our society is suffering from this exact same issue. We don't know how to care for the people we have the privilege of leading. So what we're suffering from in our society is leadership malpractice. Okay? And Tom Friedman recently captured it beautifully when he called it a poverty of dignity. It's not about a living wage and paying people more and giving them more benefits. It's about seeing the people in your span of care as somebody's precious child and treating them with respect and dignity. When I was educated, I was never taught that the way I'd run Barry-Wehmiller would affect your health or the way you'd go home and treat your family. The biggest learning we've had is that when we teach people to be truly human leaders, they tell us how it improves their marriage and their relationship with their kids, which we had no idea. We just wanted them to be better leaders, and they told us they're better spouses and better parents. So Tom Friedman said, this was about a year ago, he said, when people don't feel valued, they feel humiliated. And when they feel humiliated, you'll see anger and unrest like you've never seen before. What are we experiencing in the last few years in our country? Anger and unrest, okay? It's not about pay. We've had the lowest unemployment, okay? We live in a prosperous society, but people don't feel cared for. They feel used, okay? And unfortunately, in this environment, the CEO roundtable, America's top 200 executives came out with a statement that we need to care for more than just our shareholders. A, it's sad that they had to say that. And B, it's nice that they said that. The only problem is they have no idea how to do it. Okay? They were never taught to care. They're taught to make numbers and to use people to make those numbers. So how did work become so broken? We think, aren't we happy when our kids get a job? Why would you be happy when your kids get a job when you know they're going to be treated miserably? Okay? It's like sending your kids out to play on Forsyth Boulevard in the traffic. You know they're going to get hit and hurt. So why would you be joyous if we put a playground out on Forsyth Boulevard? That's what it's like sending our kids out in the world today. So I've been on this journey for about 20 years. I've interacted with some amazing people around the world, and I would say to you that I was asked to speak at Brown University a few years ago to university presidents. So I went up to Harvard in advance and I said, what was the purpose of education? And Jan Rifkin at Harvard said, the purpose of education in our country is to have an informed citizenry so we could have a democracy. Our founding fathers of our country felt to have a democracy, we needed an informed citizenry. So we had an education system that created this information so we'd have knowledgeable people to vote and support our elected officials. Unfortunately, Henry Ford and other brilliant industrialists came along with the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is looked on as a very positive force. Why? Because it took people off farms where they had irregular income. They had better pay and better benefits. So the Industrial Revolution created communities around factories with better benefits, better pay, better health care, right? All those good things we thought. But what did Henry Ford want? He wanted skills. He wanted assembly workers, engineers, accountants, marketing people. And so our universities, to fill the needs of this wealth creation, started teaching skills, okay? And the market rewarded them. So our universities became skills factories where we got in good raw material, we processed them, we sold them to the market. And if the market bought our product, which was our kids, we were doing a good job. Henry Ford did not say, I need great leaders. If I'm going to gather together these thousands of people in these factories, I need people who can bring these people together, allow them to share their gifts and go home at night fulfilled. Nope. It was all about economics. good paying jobs, good benefits. But guess when unions were started? In the Industrial Revolution, to protect the workers from management, okay? To protect them. Because greed, the industrialists were making a lot of money. And we needed, and our society saw the Industrial Revolution as a positive force because it created economic wealth. And we assumed money was happiness, okay? And we know for a fact money and happiness are not correlated, okay? Beyond this, so the Industrial Revolution shifted us towards skills. And most of our kids get accounting degrees, but when you look at the curriculum, I was at Washington University giving my talk annually to MBA students, and the dean, this is a few years ago, so the dean has since changed. The dean came up to me after my talk, and I said to the dean, I said, what is your vision, in this case, MBA program, 2-year, what is your vision for the 2 years you have these young men and women in your care? He looked at me and said, we don't have a vision, we have beliefs that are on the wall. I said, well, if you don't have a vision, how do you know what to teach? And he said, we teach what the market wants. I said, Dean, if you ever ask me to be on your board, which I'm confident you will not after this conversation, I would shut down this university tomorrow until we had a vision for our intentions when we have these young men and women in our care. What is our responsibility as a society to share with these kids so that when they leave your institution, they're ready to go out in the world and make a difference in a human way. He had no idea what I was talking about. So our universities, so what we've realized is that while we're out trying to fix adults through Chapman and Co., why do we have to fix adults? Because they were never taught to care. They were taught to have academic skills so you could get a good job, make good money, in theory you'd be happy. And we have the highest level of depression and anxiety we've ever had as a result of that, because people don't feel cared for, they feel used. Okay, so that's to me the root of the problem. It was never done right. It was always about successes, money, power, and position. So what we need is a human revolution, not an industrial revolution. Industrial revolution was about economic prosperity through mass production. So we took a gifted farmer and we put an assembly line, put a hubcap on every 5 seconds. Okay? As soon as we get a robot to do it and get rid of that person, we got a robot to do it, okay? So we saw people as functions, not somebody's precious child. And again, I mentioned the Business Roundtable. Remember when we had the last presidential election, there was a lot of talk of socialism, Bernie Sanders and socialism. So the CEO Roundtable came out and said, kind of defenders of free enterprise, but we need to think about more than just the shareholders. That's sad that they had to say that. It's true. The only problem is they have I know these people, they have no idea how to do that. Because they got a board says, get the share price up or you don't have a job, okay? Not get the company. I was very fortunate to have a senior board member, Bob Lannigan. He was on the board of Chrysler, he's on the board of Daimler, he's chairman of the largest glass company in the world. And I said to him one time, Bob, how much during your public company boards do you ever talk about culture? And he thought a minute and he said, well, one time in Chrysler we talked about executive compensation. That's as close as he could come. Boards don't talk about culture. They don't talk about caring. They talk about, the shareholder, the investment community. And so we don't have, at the most senior level in our companies, they're not bad people. It's a broken system, and we're seeing the brokenness. So again, our view is, and I'll take you through this journey, business could be the most important force for good in the world if we simply cared for the people we had the privilege of leading, so they would go home and be good stewards in their home as we hopefully have been motivated them. So what we need is a revolution in business focused on, if you will, moving from creating specialists, skills, to creating leaders, to creating human skills, so that people learn to care for each other. Not use each other, but care for each other. That's a huge difference, okay? That doesn't mean in all of your journey that you didn't one day work for somebody who was a really nice person who was really good to you. But that was just lucky, okay? It's kind of being lucky to have a good surgeon when you're having surgery. You don't want to depend upon luck when you're in surgery, okay? And so we believe the lens through which I was taught is all of you were functions for my success. Okay, I needed you for my success. Okay, and that's the view that we teach, and that's what I experienced in my practice. So again, we need a human revolution with human skills. So when I look back on my education, I was taught management, not leadership. What does management mean? This is my definition. The word management means the manipulation of others for your success. Leadership means the stewardship of the lives that you have the privilege of leading. Huge difference, okay? But we don't teach leadership. We teach management. We use the word management. I once asked, I was speaking at the Air Force to the Top Gun pilots, so I was out in Las Vegas speaking to these amazing pilots. And I said, how do you teach young men and women to kill other people? And the general said, we don't. We teach them to take out targets that made bad decisions. That's how they dehumanize killing, which we do in the military. In business, we do the same thing. We don't say we destroyed a bunch of lives today. We say we right-size the company, okay? We downsize the company, okay? We dehumanize the inhuman way that we treat people. So the word management should never be used. If somebody made a mistake and gave you a title as a manager in our company, they made a huge mistake. We have leaders, mentors, and coaches. We don't have any managers, bosses, or supervisors. Name anybody in your life you can manage. Anybody. You can't manage people. Name anybody that wants to be supervised. Do you want to join us and be supervised? We need leaders, coaches, and mentors. People who see the people they have the privilege of leading as somebody's precious child. Not to see people as objects for your success. And again, this is not just business. I see it in every part of our society where I speak, in hospitals and so forth. And success is defined as money, power, and position. It doesn't matter how you get it, because then you can write checks to charities and people will celebrate your life. I was never taught how to inspire people. I was taught to manage people, and I was never taught to care. I was taught to achieve business goals, which are normally financially articulated. That's how you get promoted. You don't get promoted because you're nice, okay? So the Barry-Wehmiller company you just joined today, and the current business model, which developed after our public offering in 1987 on the London Stock Exchange, where we sold off 2/3 of our company, and our historic business was left. So the company you're a part of today is the part that stayed private. But we had the benefit of this vision of the mistakes I made in the late 70s and 80s, and so I designed a business model that I thought would give us, and I learned a lot from Chuck Knight, who ran Emerson Electric, in terms of balance of products, market, and technology. And so I had this vision of going from 20 million, which we were in 1988, to 100 million. It seemed like a dream to get to 100 million, but that business model got us to 3.4 billion, okay? And our share price has gone up 15% a year compounded for 25 years. Warren Buffett is 9.8% in that same period of time. So we have found a way to create human and economic value in harmony. They're not in disharmony. It doesn't cost money to care. In fact, I could show you it actually costs money not to care. You don't attract the talent, you don't retain the talent, people don't share their gifts fully, they do just what they have to do to get by. So we've created now a company that is being studied all over the world because we're creating value and we care for people, and the people from the outside like Simon Seneca come in and said, I've never seen anything like this in my life, which astounded us. We didn't realize what we were building when we were building this. So again, think we're 3.4 billion right now. We're 12,000 team members around the world. We're the combination of over 120 acquisitions, and our future looks dramatically positive. Very eclectic journey. Nobody will ever replicate it because it's so eclectic. But so now I want to explain to you how we went from traditional business practices of management to what we aspire to be, which is great leaders of people. I was interviewed, it's probably now 6 or 7 years ago, by Washington University organizational development professors. They came out and interviewed me. After an hour-and-a-half interview, they looked at me and said, "You're the first CEO we've ever talked to that never talked about your product." I paused and I said, "Gee, I think I've been talking about our product for the last hour and a half. It's our people. Okay? I'm not going to leave this earth proud of the machinery we build. I'm going to leave this earth proud of the people who built that machinery." That caught them completely off guard. Somebody actually talked about their company in terms of their people as opposed to their product. So again, that was a unique development. So truly human leadership is around people, purpose, and performance. There's a restaurant in Aspen called Boogie's, and it had a sign when you walked in, quality, price, and service. Pick any two. I think I want all three. So this is not pick any two. It's all three. And the first word is people, because that is, our business is people. The economic model we choose, in this case, capital equipment and consulting, is just the economic model. But our focus, our product, is our people. To give people a chance to join an organization, to experience pure happiness, which is working with people you enjoy, doing meaningful work, and going home in a night feeling valued. So people around a purpose that inspires them. Okay? Our goal is to invite people into an organization where there's a purpose that inspires them to share their gifts fully. And we learned from Steve Jones, a guy that wrote a book on coaching. Steve Jones taught us, don't play your position well just for your career. Look around this room, because if each one of you plays your position well, like a football team, then the team wins. So play your position well so the people on the left and right of you have a good future, okay? So do it for the greater good of the people that you have a chance to know and then you got to perform. If we are not creating value, we lose the right to be in business, okay? Some people call it profit. I call it creating value, okay? If we don't return to the investors a fair return for their investment, okay, we lose the right to be in the game. So it's like you. If you don't earn a decent income and can't support your family, you're violating the rights to which you have the right to bring kids and to be able to support them. We have to create value or we lose the right to play this game. So it's about all three. Begins with our focus on our people around a purpose that inspires them, and then we have to create human value and economic value in harmony. And that's our goal of truly human leadership. Again, those three principles. So how do we get there? So we're really talking about moving from management to leadership, from what Bill Urey calls at Harvard, going from me to we. Moving from a society where it's all about me and my success to a society where we genuinely care about each other, which is we, because we have a very me-centric world right now. So how did it begin? 1997, we had just bought the Hasten company. It's now called Barry-Wehmiller Flexible Systems, and I flew down there to be there the first day. It was a big acquisition for me. It was about a $55 million company. They were based in South Carolina, Duncan, South Carolina. I flew down there, walked into the lunchroom. They didn't know who I was. I didn't know them. I was going to meet with the customer service group at 8 o'clock. It was 7:30 or something. So I just had my coffee, and it was March, and everybody's talking about March Madness. Okay? And having fun. Did I win $50 last night because my team made Final Four? Whatever. And they were having fun. And the closer it got to 8 o'clock, you could just see the fun go out of their body. Now, I had to go back and piece this together because I didn't know what I was experiencing. I was just having a cup of coffee and people were talking about March Madness, but clearly my mind and my heart were growing in that environment. So I walked down to my first meeting, which was customer service team, because it was a $21 million product line out of 55. It was incredibly important. So I was going to meet with that group of people first. So I sat down with them, and my wife hates it when I say it this way, but it's true. Out of me popped, okay? Things don't come out of you and pop, right? But anyway, that's the way I say it. That I said, we're going to play a game. I've never done it before, never thought about it. It just happened. And whoever sells the most spare parts each week wins $100. If the team makes the team goal, the team wins $100. Well, the reaction of these 8 people was, we can't do that. You know, it wouldn't work. And for every reason they said it wouldn't work, I had a reason it would. I'd never done it, never thought about it. It just came out of it. Well, because you're CEO of the company, people do what you say most of the time. Other than Jesse. And so I started a game. And in hindsight, what was going on inside me is, why can't business be fun? Why do people go to work and then leave work to have fun? Why can't we have fun at work? And so what happened is I went back after 13 weeks, and guess what happened? Revenue went up by 20%, and joy went up by 1,000%. Because why? This team knew where they were every day. They knew what they had to do together. They started playing the game together. They started celebrating when they make it on Friday night, and then we saw a dramatic change in fun. And because that game was just the way it came out of me was aligned to value creation, everybody won. So that became the launch pin of Truly Human Leadership. I saw people have fun at work, creating value, personal value. They knew how they were doing every day. So again, that's where it began. Second experience down on Wydown Avenue, right by WashU, Sunday I would go at church, and the rector of our church was my mentor, Ed Salmon. He was a phenomenal guy. We were raising 6 kids, so we had plenty of things to talk to our rector about. And one day I got up from the service and I looked at Cynthia and I said, Cynthia, Ed has only got us for 1 hour a week. We have people for 40 hours a week. We are 40 times more powerful than the church to impact people's lives. And so as I walked out of the church that day, right down where I said, business could be the most powerful force for good in the world if we simply had the skills to care for the people we lead. That was the huge transformation for me. The third, the one that people remember the most, is I was at a wedding of a couple of St. Louis families, and their daughter and son were getting married in Aspen at our club. And I was sitting there as my friend walked his precious daughter down the aisle. And everybody's oohing and ahhing how precious she looked and how handsome this young man was standing up at the altar. And as my friend got to the altar, he took the hand of his daughter and he said, her mother and I give our daughter to be wed to this young man. And he sat down next to his wife, and very traditional class. And my mind, again, a little bit like that event in South Carolina, went to a different place. And I stopped paying attention to the ceremony, and I started saying, because I had walked 2 of my daughters down the aisle, and I knew the process. And I said, that's not what that father wanted to say, that's what he was told to say, okay? What he wanted to say was, look at young man, we brought this precious young lady into this world. We've given her all the gifts we could possibly give so she can be who she's intended to be. And we expect you, young man, to continue to care for this young lady, our daughter, through this marriage as she will care for you. Do you understand that? That's what every father wants to say as they give their precious daughter away. And then I went on to say that led me to the next major transformation. And I said, oh my God, all 12,000 people that work for us are just like that young man and young lady. They're somebody's precious daughter. They're not engineers, accountants, receptionists, IT workers. They're somebody's precious child that's been placed in our care, and the way we treat them will profoundly impact their life. And that day, that lens that I was taught in business school, that I experienced in business, where I saw people as functions. I was a nice guy, but I saw people as functions. That's an engineer, that's an IT person, that's a client experience person. But I saw them as functions for my success, my organization. And that day, the lens went like this, and all of a sudden I realized that this is somebody's precious child. Some parent hopes gets to have a meaningful life, and that we have a chance to create that for them. So that was the kind of the culmination of truly human leadership. When you stop seeing people, and in my talks around the world, that is the one statement everybody can relate to. When you stop seeing people in your life as a function, a receptionist, an IT worker, a clerk at a store, as functions, and you start seeing them as somebody's precious child, and you treat them like you would like your son or daughter treated, or you want to be treated, you can change the world. So that is the culmination of those three events, from why can't business be fun? We have 40 people in our care for 40 hours a week, and everybody's somebody's precious child. Changed dramatically my sense of responsibility as a leader, which resulted in our decision that we need to create a university to teach this. We can't all of a sudden ask people to be nice. We can't ask people to care. We have to teach them how. So what have we learned in this journey of the last 20 years? Leadership is not a job. It is a profound privilege and responsibility for the people you have the privilege of leading, knowing that the way you treat them will profoundly affect their relationships at home, their behavior in our communities, and the opportunity for those people to live lives of meaning and purpose. And what we've realized is that people simply want to know they matter. Not just the senior executives, okay, not just the new team members, not just the top salesmen, but everybody simply knows they want to be cared for and that they matter. And the beauty, one of the things we found in this journey, which we had no idea, we obviously know during COVID that the virus was very contagious, okay? Well, the good news is we found out that caring is even more contagious than COVID, okay? Because when we started to focus on sending people home feeling valued and therefore cared for, guess what they started doing? They started caring for their fellow team members, and we saw that Washington University and Georgetown did a study and found out we had a high degree of altruism in our company, which means people willing to do something for somebody else without expecting anything in return. And that's the kind of world you want to live in, right? In other words, do something for me and I'll do something for you. This just, out of the goodness, people started caring. Because I believe we have inside of us, we're born with the instinct to care. It's just tamped down over time in our me-centric world. In the we-centric world, we have time to care for others because we see them as somebody's precious child. And in our journey to transform managers into leaders, we had a gentleman named David Vondermolen, who was part of our empowerment team that Rhonda ran. And so we decided one day that we needed to create disciples, because it couldn't be Bob believes this, so we're going to do it. We needed to all believe it, just like a good faith. Okay, so we could all live this. So we decided that we had to create a university to create disciples so it would not be dependent upon me. And we did. The good news, we had a clean sheet of paper. We had no precedence to teaching disciples of caring, okay? And so this gentleman, David Vondermolen, said, well, we need to teach people to listen. My reaction was, what? We're adults, we know how to listen. That's stupid. And the good news is they were so strong, they overpowered me and decided to develop a 3-day class as the foundational class for our university in listening. So I whatever, I just went and kind of ignored it. And we also taught recognition and celebration. Because Cynthia and I raising 6 kids, we were taught that if you don't look for the goodness in your kids 5 times more than you look for things they can do better, it's hard for them to deal with it. And so we brought that, so we said we need to spend more time shining a light in the organization, looking for the goodness, holding them up and saying thank you. And then culture of service, seizing the opportunity to serve others, moving from me-centric. So those were the 3 foundational classes. The beauty is that I was traveling to Minneapolis some months later, and a young lady walked up to me who happened to be our people leader in Minneapolis. She said, Mr. Chapman, she's probably in her early 30s. So, Mr. Chapman, I just took your listening class at the university. I said, great, what was it like? I mean, I had no idea. She said, just think of this, 30-some-year-old. She said, it changed my life. And I said, what? You taught a class at work that changed your life? She said, yes, I now know how to raise my 2-year-old child. I said, what? And so I started traveling around the country, getting groups of people together who've taken our class, said, what did you learn? And what I heard was amazing. I wouldn't be divorced now. My teenage daughters are talking to me. My mother and I have healed. Nobody said I ran a better accounting department or a better production department. Nobody. Virtually everybody said, my relationships at home have dramatically changed. And so that led us to, if you will, realize that we were blessed. Now, it was all internal. We had no idea what was really happening because this was just all incremental things happening. And again, we just taught human skills. We didn't teach them how to be better accountants or better anything else. We just taught human skills. So again, we have proven, in my opinion, from what I showed you, that it is logical you can create human and economic value in harmony, or not disharmony to care. And but I'll just mention one other thing. I'll go back one. Oh, anyway. Harvard wrote the case study, and they invited me up there to sit in when they taught it for the first time. This is about 5 years ago. And it was a group of 160 global executives who came in from a special program. So the average age was 48 years old, 80% outside the United States. And so I was just invited to sit in this auditorium at Harvard and listen as people examine my life. You know, it was kind of, so he didn't say I was going to say anything. So they have a vivid discussion from having studied our case the night before. And all of a sudden, Jan, the professor, says, is Barry-Wehmiller successful because of its culture or its strategy? That was the question he proposed at the end of the class to this group of 160 executives. So they discussed for about another 10 or 15 minutes that question, then they voted. 75% of the people voted that we were successful because of our culture. These are experienced business people from all over the world. Jan looked over at me. I was sitting in the corner of the auditorium. He said, Bob, do you want to comment? Now, I had never given it one thought, not an ounce of thought. Standing up in front of 100 executives, I stood up and said, I understand why you believe, because you studied our culture, why you believe our success is because of our culture. But let me offer a different view. If Ferrari designs the perfect engine for power, for racing, and you put regular 85% octane fuel in it, it will not perform to its potential. I said, our business model is the engine. That model I told you I designed with balance of products, market, technology. Our engine for our Ferrari engine is our business model. And our culture is 91 octane fuel, the premium fuel that actualizes that engine, okay? You can't take premium fuel and put it in a Toyota engine and think it's going to race a Ferrari, okay? So it's not the success of Barry-Wehmiller, which I shared with you, is an important combination of a unique business model designed around the mistakes I made to avoid them in the future, the mistakes I made in the 80s, had us almost bankrupt. And I survived it, but what I learned from that, I designed a business model that was more robust. If Ford Motor Company designs an F-150, a new one, they take it out in the worst terrain, the worst conditions, and they drive it and see how it holds up. Well, if you design a business model, drive it into 08, 09 economy and see what happens. Jack Welch, General Electric, fell apart in 08, 09. Bank of America fell apart in 08, 09. Barry-Wehmiller's share price went up 11% and we let nobody go. Our business model has been tested in the worst economic environment any of us have seen in our lifetime. And we just got through COVID with a similar experience. Our responsibility, our product is our people. Our responsibility is to give you a sense of security and safety and purpose so you can leave, so A, could enjoy the happiness of working with people you enjoyed, sharing your gifts, but then you can go home at night feeling valued and treat those people in your care the way you've been treated for 40 hours a week. So I'd say to you, we have created a world where my granddaughter and your kids can take their gifts, go into the world, and feel appreciated for whatever your gifts are, regardless of the role you play, that you bring gifts that can help other people. Our business is our people. We believe we've been blessed with a model that could heal the brokenness we're all feeling in the world if we all learn to be good stewards of the people whose lives that we touch every day. So we're aspiring to that. We will always fall short of that. We are not perfect. We are trying, but we have certainly been tested in some of the worst economic conditions of 08, 09 and COVID. So that's the message. I want you to feel you're part of a movement and that you'll feel, I hope each one of you feel cared for. I hope each one of you have a chance to share your gifts and go home at night feeling you're safe, that you can count on your job in your future. Make sense? Okay. That's where we all say, hallelujah, amen. Okay.
If you were in this room listening to Bob, what would have been your takeaway? Would you have been inspired to go out and listen to others and try to make the world a better place? Because as Bob said, our goal is to transform this from a me-centric world to a we-centric world. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter at Barry-Wehmiller. And don't forget to listen to more podcasts, read more articles, and watch more videos at trulyhumanleadership.com. I'm Brent Stewart again. Thanks for listening.